15th of January 2019 is 100 years ago when Rosa Luxemburg and Karl Liebknecht was murdered in Germany. She's seen amongst people on the left as one of the greatest icons of the 20th century. Today I have the privilege to ask a few questions to Kajsa Ekis Ekman, journalist and author here in Sweden, and ask her a few questions about Rosa and her status in the left. Kajsa, first of all, thank you for letting us ask you these questions.
Thank you, Reza.
Yeah, let me start by asking you. Many consider Rosa Luxemburg to be the one who comes closest to the totality of Karl Marx's thinking. What do you think about that?
Well, Rosa Luxemburg was first and foremost an economist, and a lot of people look at her as a kind of fighter, an activist, or even as, a political theorist. But first and foremost, she was an economist. She was a teacher of economy, and what she did basically was she worked at a time when Marx's writing was not so widely published and even spread. So she was the one that gathered that thinking, that spread it and comprehended, as you're saying, the totality of it and taught it at a time when the workers' movement wasn't reading all of Marx. And she also made a lot of important contributions on the theory of economy, especially in the field of accumulation of capital and imperialism, as we know. So, but she was a lot of things. She was an amazing character. She was the leader of two social democratic parties at the same time, the German and the Polish. She was the first woman to ever lead the workers' newspaper. She was satirist, I would say. Her style of polemics is close to Engels, actually, in the way that when she debates, just studying, even though you might not always agree with her arguments, studying how she formulated her arguments is impressive. Plus, it's very important to remember, as Ernest Mandel has said, she was the only revolutionary in Europe between 1900 and 1914. At the time when the German social democratic movement had gone into basically reformism. Everybody was advocating reformism, except her. And I think why she has survived is also because she has survived till today. She's not tainted by the legacy of communism or of dictatorship, because she criticized simultaneously all the different currents of the then workers' movement. She criticized Lenin. She criticized the Social Democrats, especially when they went to war. And she was also very critical of anarchism and syndicalism. The idea that was current back then, that the workers should not care about parliament, but only work in trade unions. She thought that was absolutely fatal. She said, no, you have to work both in the parliament and outside the parliament. And this is a very dialectical idea. She said that the left, the socialists, will never be strong in the parliament if they are not equally strong outside the parliament. So you have to work on both fronts.
You were mentioning her writings about accumulation, and I know that David Harvey also has built his own theory of imperialism upon Rosa's idea of the need for capitalism to have the pre-capitalist societies. She's the one that really emphasized on this the other side of the coin, so to say, what capitalism did in the periphery. Would you like to elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah, well, you have to remember that at her time, half of the International was pro-imperialist. So it wasn't so clear for the workers and the worker representative in the left to oppose imperialism. She was one of the few very clear voices on that in understanding the plight of people in colonies, but also the way that she formulated her theory, because there was a very common theory at the time that capitalist class did not want imperialism. That there was only a few sectors in capitalist class that wanted imperialism, such as few banks or a few companies, but that imperialism actually went contrary to capitalism's interests, and that it was even some kind of international war between capitalist countries that was just for some reason taking place in the colonies, but didn't really have to do with the colonies. I mean, there was all sorts of theories like that. Even Lenin proposed some kind of version of that theory. Whereas what Luxemburg did was she said imperialism is a necessary continuation of the nature of the capitalist system. You cannot have a capitalist system that doesn't expand. So it has to always expand. And because it has all these internal contradictions, such as, you pay the workers too little, so they can't buy their own products, for example, and you need constantly expanding markets both in resources and in consumption. And you have all these tendencies to crisis within the system itself. The system needs to expand, and it expands in terms of territory, which is imperialism, but it also expands, as we can see today, in the personal sphere, in love, in reproduction, in public sector, trying to sell water, trying to sell air, even, sell whatever can be sold, of course. So this is a tendency in capitalism in general.
In today's world, if we call it the globalized world, what do you think? Can the left still use Rosa's ideas?
Look, I would say like this, especially when it comes to the idea about reformism and revolution. That, I think, is something that we have to rethink.
Okay.
Because, she had this famous debate with Bernstein, who was a social democrat. And Bernstein said that basically we do not need to abolish capitalism through a revolution, but we can take it step by step. And Luxemburg was arguing against that, and she was saying, no, it doesn't work to take it step by step. We have to do it at once through a revolution. And Bernstein basically is selling out to capitalists. And, this was at a time when there was not full democracy in Europe. So you have to place that debate in that time. Because what happened was that both of these theories have now been proven 100 years ago. So you can see Bernstein's theory as having been tried out in Scandinavia, in the Nordic countries, where actually capitalism was not abolished, but where we did have a gradual overtake of important industries, of the state, of important sectors of society, up to the point where almost 50% of the economy was controlled by the state, and where workers' organizations did have and still maintain a big control over democracy and the economy and so on. So this was tried there. And you could say that the theory of total revolution was tried in the Soviet Union and in the countries in the East. And we cannot, because what is happening now is that the workers' parties in the left, in Western Europe especially, are still maintaining this split based on reformism and revolution. But you cannot stay in those times, because both have been tried. And what can we see? We can see, first of all, that none of these theories has proved right, because in the countries that there was a revolution, we have had a counter-revolution, and capitalism has been restored. We can see that in the countries where reformism prevailed, there has been counter-reformism, and capitalism has been restored as well. So this is very parallel. We can see that revolution has led to a counter-revolution, where socialism was abolished overnight. We can see that the gradualism of Bernstein has led to the gradualism of the capitalist class, where they are reforming back capitalism in the Nordic countries. So we can say that here in the Nordic countries we have had a milder result, both directions, but we can still not see that it has completely succeeded, and nor can we say that the other theory has completely succeeded. And therefore I think that this division between reformism and revolution has to be rethought, I would say. One is once you have parliamentary democracy,
Yeah.
A revolution would actually be a coup d'etat.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's not a revolution in a democratic way. So where there is parliamentary democracy, you cannot have the idea of revolution because it's fundamentally anti-democratic. Revolution is necessary when there is no way to take power through parliamentary democracy, where there is either a dictatorship, a theocracy, or somehow a very restricted type of parliamentarism, I would say. The second thing, if you look at examples of, for example, Cuba, Venezuela, and different countries in Latin America, you see that they have been able to either start with revolution and then make a lot of reforms, or start with reforms and then gradually change the whole constitution and the whole setup of society in a way that resembles revolution in a sense. So I think this division now is not fruitful. I think the left, especially in democratic countries, need to rethink this. But they're still maintaining this split. You know, if you look at the 1st of May, for example, you see how they're demonstrating. You still have the revolutionaries and the reformists, and they don't go together, which is a completely unfruitful split, I would say, for the left in general, that needs to be together.
Can it also be due to the fact that people conflate different meanings of revolution? I mean, what you are talking about is the political revolution, which occurs simply in societies where you don't have any other means to make your voice heard, for anti-democratic societies.
Yeah.
While we also have a revolutionizing tendency within economy, can it also be that the left is confused about these two terms?
You know, sometimes I think it's first and foremost a question of temperament.
Yeah.
Psychological temperament. You know, if you look at the difference between social democrats and leftists today, you see that it's more a question of temperament, that the more leftist you are, the more you want everything now, and it has to be wow, and you want to be fulfilled with some kind of passion and feeling and radicality, whereas social democrats are more practical. They think, how should we do this? What should we do? And they're not so interested in being, you know, filled up with some kind of feeling. So, I mean, this is a very interesting distinction psychologically, but when we're, of course, talking about how to reform and change the economy, you know, I mean, then we really have to think of how to do it and what is the result. The result is the important thing. If we want to take over the economy from the hands of private capitalists, which is the goal of socialists, of course, then we have to look at all means possible. All means possible means you have to look at every single issue and see what are the best means to do this. Can we do it in the parliamentary way? Can we work with that type of means? Or maybe the control is even outside the parliament in a certain way. Do we have to use the trade unions? Maybe it's even multinational companies that don't have a home. How can we work then? So this, of course, needs to be looked at in a sober way, not in terms of old fetishist associations. I mean,
you mentioned Rosa as an important economist, and in that she wasn't. She was a well-educated woman from her time, but she was also grounded in mass movement. Can you elaborate on her idea of the importance of mass movements?
Yes, I mean, she was not elitist or avant-garde in the same way that I would say Lenin was, you know, and she kept also a close relationship, I would say, to the workers' movement, and in spirit, I would say also, and in theory.
So, if we look at her ideas and today's situation, when we see that the far right is expanding, at the same time, social democracy is in crisis in Western Europe, even in Nordic countries.
Yeah.
And if we take Sweden, for instance, folk movements have been very important part of building up democracy. How can we go back? Are we supposed to go back? What are we supposed to do today?
You know how we can use Luxemburg, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think her strong point is actually both her economic contributions and her tactics.
Yeah.
You know, she writes very much about certain issues like the Moroccan question, for example. You can go back to that text and see what exactly she wrote. Also, I think it's very important for some European socialists to be reminded of the problem of imperialism and the fact that our countries are dependent on imperialism for surviving, which a lot of people now have forgotten somehow. I think her weakest point, as with all socialists, her weakest point is her predictions. When she says what will happen. If you go back to that, you see that both her and Bernstein are completely off. You know, where she says that, trade unions are now getting weaker and weaker. So they have been at their strongest points, you know, she's saying 100 years ago, and they will just become weaker. And you had not even witnessed, the rise of trade unions in Western Europe. So I think those things have to be taken with a pinch of salt. And I think that's also a lesson to socialists, that capitalism has had a tremendous tendency to adapt and to, work as a chameleon, to adapt to so many different circumstances. So, I mean, the laws of capitalism are still there, but there are many different laws at the same time that enable for capitalism to still survive. But I think there are many points where you can actually use Luxemburg a lot, especially when she, how her method, how she studies something, even though the predictions might not always be right. The way that she's very clear, she's very factual. She is, she's not dogmatic. She's trying and she's thinking, and she is actually, I would say, one of the democratic socialists of her time.
You have written quite extensively on feminism. Would you consider Rosa Luxemburg a feminist?
No, I wouldn't say it was her main focus. I mean, she did have a couple of speeches in favor of women's rights and especially women's right to vote. But, I mean, it wasn't her main contribution to political theory. I mean, you could, of course, argue that, she was a feminist in a sense anyway, just for being a woman and being who she was. But, I mean, at the same time, you had a great movement that, for example, advocated the abolition of prostitution, and you had a great movement that advocated, the women's right to vote, and she was not a part of that movement. So, and I think you don't even have to ask that of her. You don't have to ask every woman to become a feminist, or every woman economist to also be a feminist. I mean, she was an economist and a lot of more things, and that is great, in itself.
What would you say is her legacy?
I think her legacy, unfortunately, has been a bit romanticized. It's been the story of how she was thrown in the river and how she fought for her rights, and I mean, I love the Swedish intellectual Nina Björk's book on her, but it also gives the idea of her as a kind of, and I don't think she was a dreamer and a fighter first and foremost. She was very sober, intellectual, and academic, and it's kind of typical of our times, that we tend to make everything personal. She never wanted to make things personal. She kept her personal life very separate. When she wrote the letters, the prison letters and so on, she never meant for that to be a part of her political legacy. She never used her identities, such as woman or Jewish or handicapped, as a way to formulate her arguments. She wanted to be taken for her arguments and nothing else.
You mentioned that she was also quite critical of anarchism and syndicalism. But at the same time, she is the one that everybody on the left loves. Can you elaborate on some even consider, especially regarding her idea of spontaneity, they regard her as anti-party theoretician, but I don't think she was. Can you elaborate on that?
Not at all. She was not at all anti-party. I mean, as I was saying, she was the leader of two parties at the same time. she was much more centralist than most people in the left today are even, you know. I mean, today she would be considered a Leninist, I would say. But of course, at the time, she wasn't. She wasn't, you know. But
what would you say is her main difference with Lenin in this question?
That she did not believe in the avant-garde, I would say. She was not avant-garde. She was also not centralist. I mean, she did see the dangers of centralism very early. So it's true that she was, in a sense, had a more democratic idea. And also in the way that she was debating, maybe had a more democratic style, perhaps. But no, she was definitely not an anarchist or an anarcho-syndicalist. You know, she definitely believed in having a leadership and a firm leadership, of course. So I think the problem is that, I mean, after the fall of the Soviet Union, after the fall of communism in the East, there has been the need to resurrect socialism and save it from all that. So one has kind of cleansed all the heroes that one wants. You know, one has cleansed Luxemburg or Trotsky or even Che Guevara or a lot of people from that type of fate. And I think it's a bit dishonest. Because one needs to go back to the fundamental dilemma here, you know. And the fundamental dilemma is, of course, that if you have a very planned and centralized economy, you will risk dictatorship, corruption, nepotism, and inefficiency, of course, because you will have everything in the hands of very few people who might not be so competent, and you will have tendencies that are anti-democratic, that will not allow for all the workers and people to take part. You know, on the other hand, of course, if you have capitalism, it's anti-democratic in a different way. It's true that there are many different people taking decisions over the economy, but all these people are private capitalists. You know, of course. If you, on the other hand, will have an economy where everything is decentralized, you have small cooperatives everywhere that some anarchists seems to think, you know, first of all, it doesn't work with a centralized economy, you know, with the infrastructure and all that. Plus, it's very easy to take over if you still have capitalism wanting to come back inside. So socialism, of course, has to defend itself against attempts to take over by capitalists. And I would say that this riddle is the main dilemma today that nobody is talking about, you know, because we have to look at the experience of communism, of social democracy, and see where did it go wrong. I mean, Rosa Luxemburg, she was very critical of social democracy, especially because it sent workers to war. You know, when it all of a sudden turned nationalist, militarist, and killed millions of workers. You know, this is blood on social democracy's hands. But also critical of the central idea of gradualism, which, as we can see now, it has been very easy for capitalists to step in and step by step take over electricity, schools, hospitals, phone, railways, collective traffic, everything that the state used to own in the Nordic countries has been step by step taken over by capitalists. What is the fundamental problem here in social democracy that allows this to happen, is the question. And what is the fundamental flaw within communism that allowed for it just to fall down without a single trace? You know, these are questions that have to be answered. Yeah. And I don't have the answer now. No. But I think, you know, they need to be discussed from a kind of structural point of view. Yeah. You know, not from an ideological point of view. Because I think in that sense, we don't need to have fetishists cling on, you know, to ideology. We need to look at how should we actually do this, because capitalism right now is threatening the life of the entire planet. Yeah.
Kajsa, thank you very much for your time. It was really nice to talk to you, and hopefully we will have occasions to come back to you.
Yeah, that will be perfect. Thank you. There's a very interesting questions, I would say, indeed, and it gave me a lot to think about. Okay.
Thank you.
Take care.